Herod, also known as Herod the Great, was a historical figure who left a profound mark during his reign. Herod was king of Judea, Galilee, Samaria, and Idumea between 37 and 4 BC as a vassal of Rome. Herod was known for his colossal construction projects, including the expansion of the Second Temple in Jerusalem known as Herod's Temple, the construction of the maritime port of Caesarea, and the fortresses of Masada and Herodion. Herod also appears in the Christian New Testament as the ruler of Judea who ordered the slaughter of the innocents around the time of Jesus' birth. In this video, we will be talking about Herod's legacy, and at the end, we will see what his terrible death was like. Let's start. Before starting to talk about Herod the Great, we must keep in mind that in the Bible there were several Herods, but they all belonged to the same dynasty. This dynasty is known as the Herodian dynasty, and it began with Herod the Great. Herod the Great was born in 72 BC. He came from an Idumean family, a community descended from the Edomites who had converted to Judaism. His Idumean ancestry would always be a point of controversy during his life and reign. Herod's family had very significant political connections in the ancient world. His father Antipater served as an advisor to King Hyrcanus II, allowing Herod to establish influential relationships from an early age. The family was also linked to the Hasmonean dynasty, which ruled Judea before the arrival of the Romans. In the year 40 BC, the Roman Republic, at the direction of Mark Antony, named Herod king of Judea. This appointment was made in the midst of power struggles in the region of Judea that was in the hands of Antigone. Herod fought for 3 years until in 37 BC he conquered Jerusalem and beheaded Antigone. Herod took over as king of Judea with the support of the Roman legions and embarked on a reign that would last almost 4 decades. During this time, he carried out a series of massive renovations and construction projects that transformed the region, including the expansion and beautification of the Jerusalem Temple. This rise to power marked the beginning of Herod the Great's controversial but impactful career as ruler of Judea, a figure who would be both praised for his architectural achievements and criticized for his ambivalent relationship with the Jewish people and their subservience to Rome. Herod the Great is widely known for his architectural legacy in Judea. During his reign, he carried out monumental construction projects that left a lasting mark on the region. One of his most notable achievements was the expansion and beautification of the Jerusalem Temple. Herod not only expanded the temple, but renovated it with a splendid facade and ornate decorations. This architectural masterpiece was known as Herod's Temple and became a symbol of his reign. Herod also built pagan temples in areas such as Sebaste, which belonged to the region of Samaria, and especially the one dedicated to the Roman goddess and the Emperor Augustus in Caesarea. This was a public insult to Jewish law, and to make matters worse, Herod had also prepared great pagan celebrations for the inauguration of Caesarea, the great capital he had built on the coast. Additionally, Herod organized gladiatorial fights and other games during the dedication of the temple. The entire complex was offered to Emperor Augustus and Olivia, his wife, who contributed to the occasion with magnificent gifts as prizes for the victors. However, for the Jews, the gladiator fights were deeply immoral since they considered that the only owner of human life was the Almighty. At night, the feasts multiplied and the foreign dancers were almost more abundant than the diners, and with them the orgies and debauchery. The people knew about all this and were deeply scandalized. 2 other actions of Herod that offended Israelite religious sensibilities were his sordid handling of the high priesthood of the Jerusalem Temple and the desecration of King David's tomb. The first goes back to the beginning of his reign. Herod had the audacity to appoint Ananiel as high priest, an obscure and unknown man, although an authentic descendant of Zadok, the priest in the time of King David who gave rise to the lineage of the Sadducees. Herod's personal life was also marked by a series of complex family dynamics and internal conspiracies. Despite his success as a ruler, his family life was tumultuous and often very tragic. Herod married several times, having a total of 10 wives and several children. However, his paranoia and distrust led him to take drastic measures. He ordered the execution of several of his children and wives, suspecting them of being involved in plots to overthrow him. Among the victims of these purges were his wife Marion Primera and 3 of his children, which further aggravated family tensions. However, one of the most well-known events of Herod the Great's cruelty was his attempt to kill Jesus when he was still a baby. This is a well-known episode in biblical history and is recorded in the New Testament, specifically in the Gospel of Matthew. According to the biblical story, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem, the wise men from the east came to Jerusalem in search of the newborn king of the Jews, following a star. This event caused alarm to Herod as he feared that a new king might challenge his rule and power. According to the biblical story, Herod secretly called the wise men and said to them, "Y enviándolos a bullen, dijo, id ala y averiguad con diligencia acerca del niño, y cuando lo halias, hacedmelo saber, para que yo también vaya y luador." These words of Herod were deceptive, since his true intention was to kill Jesus. After the 3 wise men found Jesus, to prevent Herod from fulfilling his plan, the wise men, warned by a dream, returned to their homes by another route. Hearing this, Herod in his fury issued an order to kill all children under 2 years of age in and around Bethlehem. This event is known as the massacre of the innocents. These brutal actions added to Herod's infamous reputation as a very ruthless ruler. His distrust of his own family and his cruelty in eliminating possible threats to his power left a very large stain on his legacy. These were some of the cruelties that Herod the Great did during his reign. Now it's time to delve into his death. According to the historian Flavius Josephus, Herod spent the last years of his life driven mad by a strange ailment that caused, among other things, the birth of gangrene in the genital parts, a disease that soon led to the birth of worms. The Jews were convinced, or so they said, that King Herod had transgressed so many earthly rules that the heavens had cast an incurable curse upon him as divine punishment for the many abominations he did to his people. Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 says, "Do not be deceived, God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he shows." The historian Flavius Josephus narrates that the symptoms of Herod's illness grew worse every day. Apparently, it all started with a kind of fire that was slowly consuming him, which did not manifest itself through its burning to the touch, but rather it hurt him inside. Furthermore, he felt a fervent desire to eat that he could not satisfy due to an ulceration in the intestines. To all this, we had to add colic that caused terrible pain and discomfort in his feet and abdomen affected by inflammation with a transparent humor. Herod had a constant fever, although the most worrying thing was when worms grew in his genital parts, as well as in his arms and legs. Herod, hoping to be cured of this terrible illness, tried everything, but nothing could cure him of his terrible illness. In his last days, his pain worsened to the point that he came to feel hatred for everyone. Herod knew that after his death, the people were not going to mourn him. For this reason, he asked his sister to kill the leading Jews of the entire town after he died, so that there would be mourning on the day of his death. Finally, Herod the Great died with his terrible illness in the year 4 BC. Thus ended the life of a man who was inhuman towards everyone and had unbridled anger. A subject who despised law and justice and tried to kill Jesus when he was a baby. The Bible relates that after Herod died, Joseph, Mary, and the baby Jesus were called by an angel to return to Israel since they had escaped to Egypt. Let's read Matthew chapter 2, verses 19 to 21. After Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who were trying to take the child's life are dead." So he got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. And so we come to the end of this video. I remind you that we greatly appreciate your opinion. And I want to ask you a very important question. What do you think of Herod's death? Leave us your opinion in the comments, and without further ado, now I say goodbye, and it will be with me until the next video.